Hello everyone. Today, we'll be recapping a movie called The Monkey. The film opens with the pilot entering an antique toy store, carrying a toy monkey. He places it on the counter, attempting to return it. The toy seller looks at him and points out, "You have a blood stain on your suit." The pilot hesitates before replying, "The blood isn't even mine, it's just..." But he doesn't finish his sentence. Instead, he insists on returning the monkey. The seller, however, gestures to a sign on the wall that reads, "No returns on children's toys." The seller, however, frustrated, argues that the toy is broken. He points to the monkey's drumsticks, with one raised midair, as if frozen in motion. "You don't want this thing to come down," he warns, "because when it does, we're all fucked in hell." The seller scoffs, dismissing his concerns. But suddenly, the monkey begins to pound its drum. A strange, eerie tune plays in the background. At that moment, a rat scurries into the shop and starts gnawing at a rope. Without warning, the rope snaps, releasing an arrow that shoots out of nowhere, piercing the toy seller's stomach. The arrow violently yanks itself back out, spilling his intestines onto the floor. A gruesome, horrifying sight. Panicked, the pilot grabs a fire blaster and sets the monkey ablaze. The scene then fast forwards to twin boys, Bill and Hal Shelburne. A voiceover introduces their family, explaining how their father mysteriously disappeared one day after leaving to buy a pack of cigarettes, never to return. Their mother shares stories about their father, but avoids one particular closet in the house, which contains his old belongings. She tells them, "One day, everything in there will be yours." Curious, the boys sneak into the closet. Hal pulls out a dusty old box. "What is that?" Bill asks. Inside, they discover a strange-looking toy monkey. On the back of the box, an inscription reads, "Turn the key and see what happens." Despite Hal's hesitation, curiosity gets the better of Bill. He turns the key. The monkey stares blankly before suddenly raising its hand. The drumstick in its grip spins, but nothing happens. Shrugging it off, they toss it aside and hand it over to Hal. In the next scene, their babysitter arrives to pick them up. Their mother bids them farewell, reminding them to stay out of trouble and avoid playing with fire. As Bill, Hal, and the babysitter get into the car, they are startled to find the monkey sitting in the back seat. Brushing off the eerie feeling, they drive off. Later, they arrive at a chef's performance dinner, where a skilled chef showcases his knife skills. The boys watch in awe as he slices ingredients with precision. Meanwhile, back in the car, the monkey slowly raises its hands and begins pounding its drum. Suddenly, a loud slicing sound cuts through the air. Bill turns his head, just in time to witness the chef's knife slip. The blade slices through the babysitter's neck. Her head falls to the floor. She's dead. In the next scene, a group of people gathers for a funeral. The preacher begins addressing the mourners, his solemn words echoing through the air. Meanwhile, Hal goes to school, only to be confronted by a group of bullies. They mock him, claiming that Bill told them he was the reason their father left their mother. From that day on, Hal becomes their target, enduring relentless taunting and harassment. Even at home, Bill joins in, making his brother's life miserable. One day at school, the bullying escalates. A group of students brings a banana, mashes it up, and dumps it all over Hal. Humiliated and furious, he storms home, placing all the blame on the monkey. In a fit of rage, Hal glares at the monkey and whispers a chilling command. "Kill Bill!" He turns the key at the back of the monkey. A twisted grin spreads across the monkey's face, revealing eerie, jagged teeth. It lifts its hands and begins to beat its drum. Hal watches in horror. Suddenly, Bill returns home to find their mother standing still, blood trickling from her nose and mouth. A moment later, she collapses to the floor, lifeless. The scene shifts to her funeral, where people gather once more to mourn. Overcome with grief and anger, Bill snaps. He interrupts the preacher, yelling, "Oh, shut up!" Then he turns to his mother's casket. "Mom, wake up!" he pleads, but there's no response. Reality crashes down on him. She's truly gone. Their Uncle Chip steps in, offering to take the boys to Maine. He assures them that, though he and his wife never planned on raising children, they will try their best. But the boys already know. Sometimes the best can turn out to be the worst. Bill is unable to let go of his grief. He refuses to take off his funeral clothes, convinced that as long as he wears them, there will be no more funeral. Meanwhile, Hal is tormented by guilt. He knows this all started when he turned the monkey's key. Determined to end it once and for all, he sneaks out at night, knife in hand. Laying the monkey on the ground, he raises the blade and slashes its arm. To his shock, blood seeps from the wound. Trembling, he hacks off its neck, dismembering it into pieces, convinced that the nightmare is finally over. The next scene shows the boys arriving in Maine with their uncle. One evening, Bill looks out the window and spots something in the darkness, a shadowy figure. He steps closer, peering through the glass. His breath catches. The monkey is staring back at him. Rushing to Hal, he says, "The monkey is outside." Hal shakes his head in disbelief. I killed it. I butchered it. There's no way it could be here. A tense discussion follows. Bill insists, this monkey is evil. It's a magic killer monkey. Skeptical but desperate for answers, he proposes a test. Let's bring it inside. We'll turn the key. If one of us dies, we'll know for sure it's the monkey. Hal hesitates. What if one of us actually dies? Bill smirks. Then I promise to pretend to be sad for the rest of my life. Despite their fear, they go through with it. They bring the monkey inside and turn the key. The next morning, their Uncle Chip is found dead. His body was trampled by wild horses while camping. His remains charred beyond recognition. Shaken and terrified, Bill and Hal make a final decision. They box up the monkey, wrap it in heavy chains, and throw it into a deep pit, praying it will never return. The movie fast forwards 25 years later. Aunt Ada is introduced. She wakes up in her house, groggy, hearing a strange noise. Grabbing her gun, she cautiously walks downstairs and steps outside. She finds no one. Returning inside, she begins climbing the staircase, only to slip. Pins from a sewing kit scatter across the floor, embedding themselves into her face. Wincing, she pulls them out, one by one. Seeking warmth, she leans over the gas stove. Suddenly, the glass ignites into flames. Fire erupts, engulfing her face and hair. She lets out a blood-curdling scream. Blinded and in agony, she stumbles outside. Her foot gets caught in a pot. She trips. Her head impales onto a metal pole. And just like that, the monkey claims another victim. The story shifts 25 years forward. Hal reflects on his life, his voice narrating in the background. He has distanced himself from family, believing it is the only way to stop the monkey from killing anyone else. He approaches his boss, requesting time off to see his son, Pete, an opportunity granted only once a year. The boss allows it, and Hal makes the trip. Upon arrival, he is met by his ex-wife and her new husband, who deliver unsettling news. They plan to adopt Pete, severing Hal's parental rights. He protests, but they make it clear. This is his final week with his son. After that, he can never see him again. Pete walks in, unaware of the tension, and Hal seizes what little time he has, taking his son away for a while. At the motel, Pete begins asking questions, curious about his father's past. Hal, uncomfortable, provides vague answers, claiming he is an only child. Pete presses further, asking about Hal's mother, but the conversation is quickly deflected. That night, Hal is haunted by a nightmare. He dreams of falling into the same deep pit where he once discarded the monkey. The darkness swallows him, and suddenly, he finds himself lying on a table, the same one where the monkey had been placed years ago. Looming over him, the monkey grips a knife, ready to carve into his flesh. Hal wakes with a gasp, drenched in sweat, his heart pounding. His phone rings. An unknown number flashes on the screen. He answers, and Bill's voice greets him, his twin brother. Bill delivers grim news. Aunt Ada is dead. The legal records list Hal as next of kin. Hal refuses to get involved, insisting he needs to spend his last few days with Pete. Bill, undeterred, warns him, the monkey is still alive. It has returned, and it must be found. Curiosity overtakes reason. Hal steps outside to continue the call, careful not to wake Pete. As he stands near the pool, the glow of an overhead light flickers erratically. Without warning, the fixture dislodges, crashes into the water, and sends an electric current surging through. A woman on the pool's edge prepares to dive in. Hal shouts, desperate to stop her, but she jumps. The second her body touches the water, she is violently torn apart. Shock and horror consume him. He staggers back to the motel room, muffling his sobs into a pillow. He can't stay. He wakes Pete abruptly, telling him they need to leave. Pete protests. It's too late. He's tired. Hal, shaken and insistent, drags him to the car. Eventually, Pete relents, and they drive to Aunt Ada's house. Upon arrival, Hal hesitates outside. Pete, full of curiosity, insists on seeing his father's childhood home, specifically his old room. Hal refuses, wanting to go inside alone, but Pete won't back down. A knock at the window interrupts their exchange. Hal lowers the glass. A woman introduces herself as Barbara, the real estate agent handling the sale of Aunt Ada's house. She explains that Bill called ahead, informing her of Hal's visit. Pete's face shifts with confusion. You have a brother? Hal exhales. Yes, a twin brother. The revelation sits heavy between them. Barbara hands Hal a business card, extending one to Pete as well. He refuses to take it. She then leads Hal into the house where the weight of the past presses in. Dust lingers in the air, the space frozen in time. Hal scans the familiar surroundings, his focus sharp. He's here for one thing. They begin searching. The storage room door won't budge. Barbara notices and tries another key. As she works the lock, she shares unsettling news. The town has been plagued by a string of gruesome, inexplicable deaths, accidents with no rational cause. The lock finally gives. The door creaks open. A gunshot rings out. Barbara's head explodes, her body crumpling to the ground. Blood splatters across the walls. Hal stands paralyzed, his ears ringing from the blast. The house falls into eerie silence. Sirens wail in the distance. Police flood the scene surrounding the property. An officer steps forward, grim-faced. "You're not leaving town," he says. Not until the investigation is complete. Hal searches through the house, flipping through an old caller book until he finds what he's looking for. The last dialed number under the name Shelburne. He dials it and is met with a chilling response. An advertisement announcing that the missing monkey has been found. A realization dawns on him. Bill has already found the monkey. Worse, he's using it. The deaths plaguing the town aren't random. They're orchestrated. Bill is either trying to kill him, or the monkey is choosing victims at random, starting with anyone close to Hal. The memory of that fateful day resurfaces, the day they threw the monkey into the pit. But this time, the truth is revealed. Bill had gone back for the monkey, only to find it missing. In its place, the key remained, left behind as an eerie sign. From that moment on, Bill had been waiting for its return, searching for it relentlessly. He had always wanted the monkey, not just to wield its power, but to exact revenge. In his mind, Hal had tried to kill him when they were children. Instead, their mother had died. And now, with the monkey finally in his hands, he turns the key, commanding it to kill Hal. But the monkey has its own plans. Instead of Hal, it claims another victim, Hal's boss. In his office, he steps on a rake, and in an instant, he is dead. At Bill's house, a knock interrupts him. A young boy stands at the door. He claims he's here to retrieve his monkey, the same one he had found and returned in response to the advert. Bill dismisses him, telling him the monkey is his now. Frustrated, the boy storms off. Meanwhile, Hal and Pete arrive at the motel. Hal calls Bill, confronting him. "I know the monkey's with you. Stop turning the key. It's killing innocent people." Bill refuses. "I'll only stop if you bring Pete. Have him turn the key." Hal is horrified. "Pete would never do that." Bill hangs up. A knock echoes at his door again. He opens it, only to find the boy, this time pointing a real gun at him. He forces Bill and Pete into a car, driving them to Bill's house. Once there, he orders Pete to go inside and retrieve the monkey. With no other choice, Pete enters, maneuvering past hidden traps. Inside, Bill greets him. He hands Pete the monkey, coaxing him. "Turn the key, see what happens." Pete hesitates, but eventually twists the key. Outside, in the front yard, a massive sack of bees trembles as if awakened. Inside the car, the boy scratches at his head, uncomfortable in his father's police cap. He itches and pulls at it, accidentally squeezing the trigger. A bullet rips through the windshield. The sudden sound disturbs the beehive. It bursts open. Thousands of bees swarm, diving straight into the boy's mouth, devouring him from the inside, tearing his head apart. Hal watches in horror, stepping out of the car cautiously. Inside the house, Bill is furious. Hal is still alive. In his rage, he slaps Pete hard, snatches the monkey and shouts at it, demanding it beat its drum to kill Hal. But something is wrong. The monkey's hands don't move. Bill tries harder, forcing its tiny arms down, but they won't budge. The power is resisting him. The monkey suddenly pushes Bill back, sending him crashing to the ground. Wounded and panting, Bill looks up as Hal steps toward him. "Why are you doing this?" Hal asks. Bill's eyes burn with years of anger. "Because you killed our mother. Ever since then, I've wanted revenge. You wanted me dead, but you turned that key, and she died instead." Hal's voice softens. "It wasn't my fault. It wasn't yours either. We both lost her." For a moment, Bill hesitates. The hatred wavers. Hal reaches out a hand. "Come with us. Let's leave this behind." Bill exhales, reaching back. Just as their hands clasp, the monkey beats its drum. A massive, unseen force crashes through the room, a heavy iron ball smashing into Bill's head, crushing it against the wall. His body slumps, lifeless. The nightmare isn't over. As Hal and Pete leave, driving through town, the devastation is evident. Bodies line the streets, mothers cry over the dead. The air is thick with loss. At a traffic stop, something shifts. A dark figure on horseback stares at them. Its hollow eyes burn into Hal's soul before it turns. Riding off into the fog, Hal grips the wheel, his voice steady. "We keep the monkey locked away. No one can ever turn that key again." They drive off, the horrors of the night trailing behind them. A bus filled with cheering girls passes by. Laughter rings through the air. Then, a truck swerves into them. Screams are cut short. The cycle continues.